Would you want to lose $600,000 in opportunity cost? Hi, I'm Sam Powell.
And I'm Joe Kraus, and we're the hosts of the Property Pals Australia podcast. And in this episode, we're discussing why buying a unit in your hometown can cost you up to $600,000 in capital growth. We also share why most people confuse their strategy as being their actual goal and how that keeps them stuck from building a healthy property portfolio and keeps them stuck from actually achieving what their real goal is when they forget about what it is.
Yes, it's always important to start with the end goal in mind and work way backwards. And I also share the simplest way for you to get to $100,000 in passive income through property investing. So it's really key for people to understand. And I also jump in and we discuss how often your strategy should change and why rigid thinking holds you back severely. Now, there's a lot in this episode, so I hope you get a lot out of it. But before we do get stuck in, I want to tell you this is not the only way that we can help you for free. We have this really great how to maximize your borrowing capacity mini course on our website. So head on over to propertypals.au/resources and use this course to help you improve your borrowing capacity, which is going to lead to you acquiring a better quality asset and then a better return on investment.
Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jaryd, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional. Samuel, we've got something to riff on today. How do you want to start this one out?
I'll do a bit of an introduction, a bit of cheese. Jaryd and I were just talking in the background, strategy. We had Jordan De Jong on last week talking about property strategy and the importance of it. And I want to keep on that theme because it's one of probably the most misunderstood and under talked about things in the property space, because starting with strategy is how to set yourself up for real success. And we're just talking about the background, a few different client situations that's going on at the moment, and that there's always that classic thing where people they're wanting to buy 2 properties or 3 properties in a year. And I was talking to Jaryd, I'm like, well, my honest opinion is it's always better to focus on quality over quantity. So pull your ego out of it. It's not about how many properties you can have. It's, I guess, that overall portfolio position, because no one's wakes up with that dream. Oh, I do want to own 20 properties. It's usually I want a passive income that can give me the financial freedom to do what I want. Property's the vehicle.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, I get caught out by this as well, is that we have this goal. We go, okay, I don't want to work anymore, or I want to retire, or I want X amount of money. And people typically think that's what the goal is. But the goal typically, I find, for most people is freedom, to have some financial freedom or complete financial freedom. And that allows, which probably isn't the real goal, which allows time freedom, which is probably the real goal, and freedom from stress and stuff like that. So if that's the real goal, what happens then is we should focus on that and continue focusing on that. But as we start to get more granular and we find a vehicle, like, all right, let's buy residential property, or let's buy commercial property, or let's buy whatever it is, then what people do is they chunk down their goal to being, I need to, and it's natural, is that they look at, I need to be here earning X amount of money, so I'm not working and I'm doing all these things with my friends and family. And then they work backwards to today's present day of what's the first thing that I need to do to get there, and then what does that property portfolio look like? and it might be like 2 residentials in 2 years or 5 residentials in 5 years, and then commercial. And then they have this property in their head, this property portfolio in their head. They go, that's what my goal is. I need this property portfolio. But that's what that property portfolio looks like is not the actual goal. And if you say, for example, like a lot of people are selling, and a lot of buyers agents, and I'm just going to just say it, a lot of buyers agents want you to buy a lot of residential properties because that's what they're really good at. And they, in business, you make far more money from returning customers than acquiring any one single customer. So it makes sense for their business model. And at the same time, yes, it can be helpful for some people to buy a lot of those residential properties. But at the end of the day, is that what your real goal is? Is it actually a lot of these properties, or is it, hang on, what if I had less properties with less pressure, less stress, less work that actually paid a better ROI? What if, and so let's not get confused with the real goal here, guys, because what if somebody comes along, or what if you listen to a bunch of podcasts and YouTube videos and even advisors that say this is what your property portfolio needs to look like, and then you get very strict and focused on this property portfolio of what it looks like and that strategy, and then somebody else comes along and says, hang on, what if, so your goal is, say, 100K a year passive from property, and you're going to do it from 3 residential properties and 3 commercial properties, and it's going to take you X amount of years. What if somebody comes along and says, hey, what if you just buy, one property, or what if you just what if you buy one resi and then a second resi, sell them both, and then buy in a commercial, and then build that commercial up and maybe sell that and buy a larger one? Or what if there's a completely different strategy and you're stuck and rigid in this approach of, no, it needs to look like this, but that vehicle may actually be the slow vehicle. You might be getting in a renter bomb and it may take you far longer to get to your actual real goal, your real destination, right? So I've been in that position. I think a lot of people are in that position in property, is that you get all this advice from all these people and you formulate this strategy or this portfolio and then become rigid. And that's the real roadblock. That's the mental roadblock that stops you from your real goal, right?
Mate, you just open up a can of whoop ass on like analysis paralysis, and this is exactly what I go through every single day. And I'm really trying in my career to help streamline this in like the simplest way possible people understand, because there are so many different ways to skin a cat. It's a weird sort of saying when you think about people skinning cats. Obviously,
it's not nice to think about.
Yeah, many ways to peel an orange. Eh?
Yes, I like it. Healthy.
all right. Because like even I'm running a strategy at the moment for a client, and she's cashed up. She wants that passive income, but she can hit that target of what she wants, which is $100,000, and it's pretty much just going straight into a big commercial property. But then that's a big mindset shift and a lot of education around commercial to give her the confidence to do that. So this is the education journey. And then there's also the, I want security in a principal residence as well. So I'm just running these are 2 strategies. Like, you can get what you want pretty much today by one purchase. And that blew her mind, because she's just like, well, I didn't think that was even possible. And it's like, well, you can. These are the risks involved, and then it's just generally an education process. That's with the commercial thing, because it's not so common, and there are definitely risks involved. So it's good to get educated and speak to people, and especially if you're buying a commercial property, go through a commercial buyer's agent. That's really key. At the very least, start with. We had Steve on here. He's got a book out there. You can go on to Police Your Property and use Property Powell's as a code to get it for free. Start there at the very least. But I wanted to, it was like in my journey, I'm building out some of my, I guess, helping people understand just how simple it really can be. Like you said, $100,000, right? Like that's a pretty standard goal that I deal with every single day, and like you can do that through residential. And the most simplest way of, I guess, doing that is like all you really need is like 5 residential properties in your portfolio, renting out at $575 a week, paid off. Because you're going to use one of those properties, the income at $575 a week, to pay for all the outgoings, which generally is around $8,500 per property. So, like, if you round it up, say it's $10,000 a property, you got 5 properties. One property is paying for all the outgoings. The other 4, which are generating that income at $575 a week, there's your passive income. There's your $100,000 done.
So, question: how long does it take? So, say I buy 5 properties in 5 years at 80% LVR, and they're $500K each. How long does it take to have those paid off?
Yes, well, everyone's different. Everyone's got different income streams.
True.
And that's where the complexities lies, and that's where a more strategic approach and monitoring each year is important. And having a that's why I got into the property investment advisor space, and left financial planning and valuation to try and help people understand that there's smart ways of doing this to amplify it. Because the answer to your question, if you're just starting out, you're looking at a 20, like if you get those loans, they're generally a 30-year loan period. At the very least, if you're just making your basic repayments, it's going to take you 30 years to pay down that portfolio. Obviously, over time, your income will increase, and then that debt burden, it fast tracks. As long as you're like, you got the minimum expense, minimum money being put in, but what you should be doing is when you paying down that debt, obviously maintain that same payment and putting it into that portfolio will pay it down faster. It generally shaves off 10, sometimes 15 years. So you can bring it down faster. I just, I like to look at worst case scenario and just say, well, if you do the bare minimum, and then when you start, paying down that debt, you've got more household income. If you want to spend that on, holidays and lifestyle, which, we do need to also appreciate the present in our lives. So there's that.
Absolutely.
But that goes into the other strategies of, having that, like, that accumulation phase gives you options in the future. And because of market cycles in property, I'm having conversations with clients that have had property for five years, and they've had, really strong growth the last 5 years. And we're just discussing whether, is this a good time to sell this asset that's doubled in value to then split that, because it's now a $1.2 million asset. Do we then sell that and use that equity to go and buy 2 properties, because the growth in that more affordable range is going to fast track it? That's that it's an active portfolio if you want to fast track your journey.
Same thing that I'm thinking about in 3 years' time is selling a property and then putting some income from, or a little bit of equity from some properties and some business income, and selling a property, and the profit from selling that property, and buying one larger commercial in 3 years' time, depending on what the market does. And I think that's the main thing that we're really sharing with people is like, be flexible. Like, if you want to achieve something, be flexible in how you get there. If you're rigid, it's not going to be a fun journey. And I think rigidity is like really causes stress and frustration. I know this personally. And you were speaking to somebody that wanted to buy maybe more properties that they could afford in 1 year, and they could go away and do that with 2 lesser or 3 lesser quality properties. But would it be better for them to just buy one larger property? And was their goal, I want to buy as many properties as I possibly can, versus like if you buy just one that out performs those 2 properties. And then a lot of people have this goal of like a lot of properties and this 100K passive income in a short period of time. But how important is that goal to you? Like, if we got on a coaching call and said, yes, you can achieve that, but you need to increase your earning per year by 100K to be able to get borrowing capacity to make that happen, would you go out and start a business? Or are you just expecting? And I'm not expecting people to go out and start a business. Business is tough, and earning an extra income isn't the most ideal because, like we said, you're trying to do this for lifestyle. But is it something, if you're a bit younger with less, less people in your life that you're accountable for? Is it something that you're willing to do, or are you in a position where you're like, I want 7 properties in 7 years with my current income, and I've got 4 kids and a partner, and I'm the only one working? Should you really expect that? Like, these people that have achieved 7 properties in 7 years, maybe they're single people with a business income, no wife, no kids. Like, who are you comparing yourself to?
Yeah, apples and oranges there. And
The story, the story of like somebody achieved this amazing result in property. Like, okay, that's what it looks like, but what sort of resources do they have compared to what your resources you might have?
Yeah, well, Jack, on the last episode, Jordan was mentioning that, and Jordan works with over 160 leading buyers agents in Australia, and he made a really interesting comment, which was a lot of these buyers agents, they've got the business income to help support their growth in their portfolio. So you're not comparing yourself to them because you're not making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year.
The average person,
and a lot of them too, like they don't have the family as if you've got a family. So it's having those harder conversations, and just that's what I start my strategy sessions out is like, what's the big goal? What are you really working towards? Because everyone's different. And if you just got to be real with yourself, because if you're not, property is an expensive thing to buy and sell out of. So that's why I try to sort of break down those barriers and really understand you as an individual. Because if you got that goal of, you want that principal place of residence, that's more important for your family security. And like, even for myself, like I've got family that work in the building industry. So like I'm not shying away from principal place of residence because I can manufacture a lot of equity into that and use that, to get me. It's like that little bit medium, longer term goals where, you understand that, we all want to get to this passive income. Sure, no worries. But it generally requires you to have a little bit of short-term pain into like, saving that, income that you're making and putting it towards your property investment to hold that asset, because over time that's going to appreciate in value. And then when you've got that stronger capital base, and this is in most people out there where, the income is always is that goal. And that's why I'm more passionate about that commercial, because it's a higher quality asset than having a residential asset in, Broken Hill is a location in, like, it's a really strong mining town. You're getting about 10%. BHP is like originated out of there. Interesting location, but do you want to own an asset there just to get your 10% cash flow per year? For me, I think that's not the smartest play, because 10% on a residential after expenses works out to be sort of like 6 to 7% net. You can go and buy a commercial, in metro locations around Australia for around a 6% net yield. So that's a better quality asset, and it's more passive because your tenants are paying your outgoings. But to get to that base, to hit that, which is what obviously you're going through, like you need to have, hundreds of thousands of dollars as a deposit to get you through into something that's of a quality asset. So that requires you to have that asset base, and residential is where that journey starts. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I want to move this on to what you also wanted to talk about, is like a bit of a case study between buying a residential property versus buying a unit. A residential property in a what sort of area would you call it? Outside metro area, or?
Oh yes, this is so I had a client potential client that's just they're weighing up their options, and this is very prevalent to a lot of people where they live in a metro location, and by metro I'm talking this one's in Sydney, in like a city called Kingsford, a suburb called the city of Kingsford, but it's like they've got a purchasing capacity of $500,000, and that's, for a family with kids, like it's, it's great that they've made that deposit and they've got this borrowing capacity. They've done so well to get to that point, given their background. And it's just like, this is the reason why I got into this industry, is because I saw people making mistakes, and it changes the whole trajectory of your life, because it's a common thing, right? Like, we live in this location, we know it, we understand it. For our borrowing capacity right now, we know we need to get into property because it's rising. We're sick of paying rent. So what can we buy for our budget in where we want to live? And in this case, $500,000, the only thing they could afford to buy was a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. And I were running like, well, there's that rent vesting strategy that you can go down, where you can use that $500,000, which is a really healthy budget, to go and buy a house in a more regional location that has better cash flow and better capital growth prospects. And I can run you through a few figures, because I did
Love it.
Yeah.
Bring the figures on. Also, I just want to mention that before we bring these figures on, is being flexible with this as well. Your first property is pretty important. And I think that, I know that there's a lot of people that go out and want to get into property investing, and they go away and they find their own property, or they purchase this property based on a location they've heard about on the internet. And the location is just one metric. Then you've got all these other things like street metric and appeal and vacancy rates and all that sort of stuff in that certain area. And they go away and they purchase it on their own. And they after 2 or 3 years, they realize, like, damn, I bought at the top of the cycle, or they didn't have the best experience, whatever it is, right? Maybe they did have a good experience for the first year, and then the rest has not been great. And then their association within property investing is that it doesn't work for me. It may work for everybody else, but it doesn't work for me. The reality is that is just stupid. Because how is it that there's so many people that become millionaires from property? And we know that anybody can do it. Like, if somebody else can achieve it, then you can achieve it too, right? And yeah, I just think it's that association of, like, thinking that I've purchased as a property, and property investing doesn't work. Like you said, it can, if you buy the right property, it can set you up for a superior life. But if you buy the wrong one, it can go the opposite way, and you can get caught in stuck thinking that it doesn't work.
Exactly.
It's compound. It compounds either way. So yeah, I'd love to know some figures.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I ran it, like, it was the idea from the person I was talking to was, buy it as an owner occupier and then rent it out in that 12 months, so they get that the concessions going in, first home buyer, and then they can rent it out, and 6-year ruling, all this kind of stuff. If you're wondering what that means, just jump on propertypowers.au website and just put your details in, and I'll give you a call and we can have a bit of chat about it. But for the purpose of the comparison, I ran both as an investment option. So this 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit, 1 car space, against a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house in a location called Kelso, which is in Townsville region. Actually, sorry, it was a 4-bed, 1-bath, and it was $500,000, something that we were negotiating on, just to give them an idea. So to build out those figures, I went deeper and just go, well, like, for me personally, I've tracked these markets for over a decade. 1-bedroom apartments suck in capital growth. Good for cash flow. Cool. Well done. So I'll run you through the figures as to why I'm like trying to help people on this front. So if we had a purchase price for this unit at $500,000, that unit was built in 2002, and since it was built, it achieved, on average, it was just below a 3% growth rate per annum. Like, from 270 to when it was first purchased to now, it's around 3% over a 22-year period.
Whoa.
So I was like, okay, cool. Well, Australian average runs around 5 to 6%. From an investment point of view, I'm targeting minimum 6%. from a growth rate per annum. Obviously, you put a lot of money and data into finding these locations to give us that confidence. And then historical performance, like it speaks for itself. So this is a scenario: 1-bedroom apartment, 500 grand, or a 4-bedroom house in a regional location, Townsville, major regional location, for 500 grand. The growth rate on the Townsville one was 6%. Growth rate on the unit was 3%, so half. The cash flow is stronger on the unit. So like the total cash flow return on an annual basis was $10,400. The cash flow was a negative $4,470 in the Townsville property. So initially people are like, oh, well, that sucks. It's costing me $4,500 to hold this asset. So that's where that people tend to focus on cash flow in their decision-making process.
Yeah, immediate results. Yeah.
So you invest. That's why you invest for capital growth, and it is hard. But zoom out, look at the historical performance. We've been through GFCs, dot-com bubble, recessions, you name it, wars, and property prices today are higher than they were 30, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, keep going on. Like the trend is in your favor, and Australia is still a young country, and the trend will continue. So the trend is your friend. There's a classic comment in that sense. So to build it all out, I did a projected value over 20 years. If you maintain that 3% growth rate on the unit, the projected value in 20 years, if you buy it for 500 grand today, is $900,000. Well done. That's really great. So the cash flow return over that period, as I mentioned, $10,400, which is really strong. So that's always happy days. Because that's $10,400, which is $520 a year. So break that down. If you're running at a 6% growth rate on a 500 grand, that in 20 years you're not making 900. It's not worth $900,000. Take a guess. What do you think it's worth?
20 years, I think it's worth 1.3 mil.
Ooh, well done. 1.6.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's far better than I thought. When you think about what I did in my head was like, people say property doubles every 10 years, sorry. And it's 20 years. So, double and then a double. But yeah, I mean, my math isn't right, but yeah, I mean, that's, wow. So you've got basically 1.1 mil in capital growth.
Yeah.
Over a 20-year period.
Yeah. So then you go, all right, cool. And this isn't taking into account rental increases or anything. It's just real basic figures. So
just capital growth. Yeah, only.
Yeah. So capital growth. And then because you're taking that negative cash flow to hold that asset over that 20-year period, it's going to cost you just under 90 grand in holding costs. Like that. Once again, your rents are going to increase and your debt's going to reduce, so it's going to be less than that anyway. But let's go worst case scenario. So $1.6 million minus the $90,000. That estimated return for the house, $1,510,000 is it's sort of return on investment essentially. You take out that initial purchase of 500 grand, that brings you down to just over $1 million in equity uplift over a 20-year period. If you compare that to the unit that grew, well done, grew in value, it's now $900,000, plus you got that cash flow of $10,000 throughout that 20-year period. The equity uplift is just over $400,000, so $410,000, so the difference between that is $600,000 in equity uplift over a 20-year period.
This is what we call opportunity cost. It cost you literally, by investing in that unit, it cost you $600,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's 30 grand a year you're costing yourself. And then people ask me, well, I can't see the point in paying for help and advice. And this is the reason, is that you get, and I get it though, like there's good, there's great, and there's rubbish and everything. You just got to find the good and the great. Well, obviously the great's the best, but then good is better than rubbish. So that opportunity cost is potentially costing this person $600,000. And even for those owner occupiers that are out there thinking, oh, well, I'd rather owner occupy than in my backyard where I know than rather invest. It's like, well, okay, cool. Say you've owned that asset the whole time. You've got no capital gains tax on it. Even if you take into account, the capital gains tax payable on that property, I did the calculation. It's about 240 grand that you'll be paying. So you're still net ahead by over 350 grand by rent vesting in a better quality asset than buying a crap one bedroom apartment because it's all you can afford in where you want to live.
Yeah, I mean, not really all you can afford. It's all you think you can afford, or typically all. Yeah, I mean, in the area that you feel that you should buy because you apparently know it, right? And that's also rigid thinking, like we've mentioned before so many times around like invest in locations that aren't in your backyard. You don't need to know the area because you can outsource that knowledge to a buyer's agent that spends a crap ton of money every year buying data to find that. And by doing that, what a buyer's agent might cost you anywhere from 10 grand to 20 grand to buy a property. That is cheaper than the amount, that's less money than the amount that you're going to earn in 1 year from holding that property.
Yeah, to go even deeper to add more salt into my theory, my thesis, and obviously it's highly educated in like I've been tracking these markets for years, but Kelso as a region, the data that I track, and that's using microburbs. I mean, you can jump on and look at yourself by all means. We've had Luke on here before, and the data projection for the next 4 years is annualized at 7.5%. So vastly outperforming that 6% target that I just mentioned in my calculation.
Sam, you're giving away absolute value here.
Oh, well, it's like there's those that can, I can give it everything I can. Like I'll give away. It just comes down to those that are time poor, that understand that they're better off earning money in their own profession and building their own careers. But the skill set of analysis and negotiation, that takes decades to actually build up to be competent in it. So it's like there's those that won't see the value, but at least they can go out and do a much better job than they would have otherwise, hopefully, by listening to this. If they want to outperform, then obviously that's what we're here for as a business.
Wow. I mean, I don't know what else to add to that. You've highlighted it very clearly around opportunity costs, and that's just one scenario, right? Like,
I'll do it. Yeah, there's a few. Well, and we're going to do a bit of a series because I'm building out more education on this strategy side of things, because I think people go to a mortgage broker, get a borrowing capacity, and just jump to conclusions. You're starting at like level 2 or 3. You haven't had the education and knowledge of like level 1, and that's where it's like there's so many questions that like people like they're nervous on going to regional markets because they don't understand it. Like they think capital cities outperform regions, and there's a lot of information that's out there that can get people lost, because I've spent probably the last 5 years trying to figure this out, and I do it every day. So if you want to go out and, make your own assumptions and do your own research, all power to you. But I'd love to get you on the pod and just talk about, your findings, because together we can obviously get, be better together. But I've come to a realization through these years of research and buying properties around Australia is that, there's a lot of misinformation out there.
So much. What would actually be pretty cool, Sam, is like if we take somebody that, one of our coaching clients, if we take them on a podcast episode, just bring them on, have no, maybe they fill out, a bit of a form, and we have a little bit of their data, and they're very open to, we won't share your last name, email, or anything like that, maybe just your first name. Or an alias name if you want, but talk to them around strategy, and we both, jump in there and have a yarn and sort of showcase, their options. And I think that'd be super valuable. If you are a listener and you're thinking about, having a chat to us, or you're thinking about acquiring your next property. You could already have 5 properties. You could have 10 properties. Like, jump on and have a chat with us. We'd learn from your experience. Everybody else would learn from your experience as well. And then we can also re-strategize where you're at. If you're open to being flexible and wanting to actually attain what your real goal is, I would suggest it's probably freedom, some form of financial freedom to do what you want, when you want, how you want. And what do you think, Sam? Do you reckon that'd be a good pod?
Yeah. Well, always looking to help people, and it'd be good little experience. So yeah, definitely. We've got a form on the website. So just if you haven't done so already, fill it out, and let's have that discussion and start with strategy. And at the very least, it'll be a fun, entertaining chat. And I mean, that's kind of what we love about it, is even just giving people the resources to talk to those that, like, there's a lot of different situations going out there at the moment, especially with finance, and being on top of that, it's important to be talking to the right people and assessing your options. I don't know, I'm kind of excited already about it, because there's a few things just floating around my brain, which you could probably see if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm smiling.
And also, don't, if you're going to reach out and you want to chat to us, no stress. We don't need to do it on air. We can chat to you, just personally, privately. Yeah. Anything else to add to that, Sam? I mean, we just kind of just riffed on this one, but I think we've shared a lot of good stuff for people.
No, I'll build out a little bit more in the strategy side of things, just to do this strategy series. But if you are, like, a big part of obviously having Jordan on last week as well, is that I'm a big fan of that, the game plan software, which is a business to business software system where I can run 30-year property strategies for people, and it's really helpful in going, well, what's your next best step? Because a lot of people do get caught up in, yes, I got this borrowing capacity, I want to hit financial freedom. What does that actually look like? How can I get there? And by running the actual figures and understanding your current income, your outgoings, and building that out, it's a really simple tool to give you that confidence to go, well, this is your next best step. And it, like, 9 times out of 10, it's not some like development side, or buy and do a subdivision, or build a granny flat, renovate. It's just simple: buy this, make sure we're hitting this income target, and then allow that time to do the heavy lifting. And the growth rates we run, they're pretty. I like to be conservative in everything, and at least that way it gives you a baseline. And the biggest take home I need to express to people is, you got to take the first step, because if you do nothing, nothing will happen.
Yeah. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. Love that, Sam. Cool.
The end.
Thanks for listening, guys. Reach out and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye.